giving you useful and practical tips to help you make more money selling travel. This is the Art of Selling Travel Podcast, and here to guide you through it all, your host, Glenda Beagle.
Hello, and welcome back. Today, we've got a fabulous question that was posed from one of those conferences from the fall, and it came to us from Dave. And Dave's question was, my question would be around qualification questions. I agree I am the expert, and some of our questions pigeonhole travelers instead of offering them something they've never thought of. So how or what qualification questions can we use instead of the traditional? So, and then he went on to say it was prompted by something that was said during the conference. This is such a good question because I think it's something that trips up a lot, not just salespeople or not just travel advisors, but salespeople as a whole. Yes, you are in travel, you are in sales. But let's talk about what is a qualifying question. So qualifying questions to me come from a little bit of an old school train of thought, but we need to rethink it a little bit. Do you need to be able to qualify your clients? Yes. Do you need to ask them questions? Yes. Do you technically need qualifying questions? Yes. But instead of this being like an interrogation or a questionnaire or a form, let's get curious. We want to get curious with our clients and connect. Let's chase a squirrel. A lot of travel advisors use an advance form. Here's the problem with an advance form. It creates a bias so that when you're asking them qualifying questions, you are asking them questions based on what they've already answered. So absolutely, it's going to pigeonhole and not move past that. The other thing is quite frankly, sometimes it creates a bias where you just simply don't want to work with them because their budget's too low. It's too this, it's too that. We don't know what prompted them to say those things. If you were a part of Curious to Booked, if you were a part of my world, if you have taken my sales training, you know that I am anti-form. There is so many reasons for it. And I don't know if we've already done a podcast on that, but if we haven't, we need to, because I think there's so much value in the conversations. Here's the thing. Qualifying questions need to be part of a conversation. They need to be a part of a consultation. See, consultations are intended to spark the curiosity and build connection with your client. It establishes the context for why they think what they think and what you do. See, if you don't understand the context to what it is that they're saying, it can have an entirely different meaning. If I said to you, don't touch that, and that's all I said, it doesn't mean anything. You need to know why. You need to know what. You need to know, is it always that way? Or is it just some of the time that way? Because sometimes when we work with clients, and this can be especially when we work with repeat clients, we just assume that they're doing the same thing from one trip to the next, that nothing's changed. You've got to go back in and get curious every time. See, your clients, in order to make this purchase, again, we are not talking about a $10 purchase. We're talking about thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars that they're looking to spend. That takes a different type of conversation. They need to be heard. Being too quick with your Rolodex roster of questions doesn't allow for that. I had an advisor that was on my team years ago, and she used to say, consultations don't work. Like they just don't. And I'm like, okay, well, let's walk through it. Tell me, how long does your typical consultation take? Like 5 minutes. I'm like, holy smokes, how are you doing a consultation in 5 minutes? And so I said, okay, let's role play. And she's like, okay, what about this? 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 I'm like, holy Hannah. I get that you might be a first responder in your other world, but in this world, we are not interrogating our clients. It needs to be a conversation, not an interrogation. So we need to slow it down. We need to get curious. And while we need to know certain things, The most important thing we need to know is what prompted each of those answers. So, for example, as a whole, the 5 W's are what you're looking to answer. Who? Who's coming? Are there any mobility or dietary issues? Who are they going to be bringing with them? Who are they so that you can understand them? What type of trip are they looking for? Again, this can change from one trip to the next to the next. I think sometimes, especially when I hear from advisors, I need qualified clients. Like, how do I qualify my client? We need to make sure that we're not just blanket qualifying them for the end of time. Instead, we need to qualify them for this trip, for that trip, for the trip after, and the after and after and after. So, what type of trip are they looking for in this vacation? Where do they want to go? When are they looking to go? Sometimes they don't even know. So, how do you shrink down that time frame? And why? This one gets repeated over and over and over and over. So, for example, okay, great. So, what kind of trip are we looking to do this time? Well, I think we want to do a trip to Hawaii. Fabulous. Is it okay if I ask why? What's got you thinking Hawaii? Because we want to make sure that we understand why. I remember years ago being at a conference and Nolan Burris was there, and he was talking about the woman that wanted to go to Hawaii. And so, like he said, you could have clicked, given her the hotels, given her this, given her that. Instead, he asked her why. And her response was, because I want to ride horseback on Waikiki Beach. I have had that so many times. I have had people that wanted to go to a certain destination because of an animal. Well, that animal doesn't live there. I've had people who wanted to do this type of trip, but it was not what was offered there, or it was offered in a better location, or it was offered for a better reason. We need to understand what they want to do, where they want to go, when they want to go. Again, the when, we want to be really careful with that. As you are quite well aware, as you are a professional travel advisor, the weather can be a huge factor. So maybe they want to go to the Caribbean in October. Fantastic. What is it about October that's caught your attention? Oh, the prices are super cheap. Yeah, they are, because it's hurricane season. So is that going to be a problem for you? You want to make sure you're having those conversations, because anytime you miss the conversation, guess what? It ain't them that's going to take the blame. They're going to put that on you. Why that style of trip? Why that destination? Why that time frame? Why that price point? Yes, you need to understand why that price point. I'm just really curious. Where did you come up? Where did you come up with that price? Or where did that price come from? Okay, cool. That was fabulous that's what your friends paid when they went on their Alaska cruise. When did they go? Oh, 2015. Yes. Prices are very different from 2015 to 2025. So I don't have a time machine. So you're going to have to look at a different price point. You want to have those conversations. Ultimately, you've got to stop qualifying and instead get curious, because the more curious you are about your clients, the better you're going to understand them. When you start from a point of curiosity, you don't start from a point of pigeonholing, because when you start from a place where you are biased, where they're like, okay, so we've already checked this box, this box, this box. Okay, so then this really is your only, yeah, you said you want this, so I'm going to sell you this. And then afterwards you're like, but that's not what I wanted to sell them. And that's not what the right option was. But you didn't ask or get curious enough to ask the questions that would give it an opportunity to lead into something else. When you lead with curiosity, it makes your clients feel seen and heard. It makes your clients understand that there's a multitude of layers to what it is that you do. You do this all the time. Your clients travel a couple times a year, once a year, every couple of years. They don't do this on the daily. I remember at my peak, I was booking probably anywhere from, on the slower days, maybe 5 5 vacations a day, upwards of like 20 some vacations a day. And so what I had to go through to get all of that done in a single day, the clients didn't like that, just wasn't part of their repertoire. They were not having to check the laws multiple times a day. They were not constantly in there. They were not constantly being updated on this property versus this property, this activity versus this activity, checking this out versus that out. It wasn't what the clients, that's not what they do. But when you can ask them questions and get really in depth with what it is that they're looking for, what it is that they are wanting, what it is that's going to set it apart, it's going to change the conversation. Now, obviously, if somebody comes to you and they say, I want to book this, and you start into your questions, and the first one being, that's fabulous. Can I ask what it is that drew you to this particular holiday? Well, that's where we're attending such and such event or wedding or blah, 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 whatever it is. Well, then that's a pretty hard stop right there. There is a very definite line. Now, did that ever stop me from saying, obviously not so much in the all-inclusive world, but just in the standard, okay, is that the hotel that you're comfortable with? Or are you looking for a different experience? No, that's the one that the group's at, so we just want to stay there. Perfect. And especially if you already have an existing relationship with the client, you can help them to understand what it is they're going to get. I remember booking friends of mine. Sorry, I did not book them. Friends of mine came to me. There was a phenomenal deal with another agency, because that was back in the day when certain agencies were allowed to have things that other ones were. Like, it was the whole thing. Could not touch it. Did not even want to wade into that. However, we always want to make sure we're looking after our clients. So in that particular case, I said, okay, here's the scoop. I can't touch those rates, so you're going to need to book with them. However, I'm going to suggest you upgrade the flight. You need to be asking for this. You need to upgrade the room. You need to be asking for at least this. And then these are some of the other things that I would look at. Now, funny enough, the trip was so absolutely miserable because I just told them straight up, I'm like, you're not going to like this property. This is not ever one I would put you in, but I get it. Your friends are going here. You just want to go hang. It took years before they actually told me just how bad it was. That being said, I booked all their trips after that because they just weren't going to go anywhere else. But I think sometimes when we're in the consultation, when we're in the questions, when we're in the curiosity stage, there comes up a lot of fear for travel advisors, because if you don't have a written, hard, fast Rolodex of questions that you're just going to rifle through like you're filling out an intake form at a hospital, that what happens if they say something that you don't have the answer to? So what? I would far rather work with somebody that says, you know what? I don't have that right on the tip of my tongue. So if it's okay with you, I would like to circle back with you by the end of the day. No problem. But I also want somebody who's going to listen to what I'm saying, repeat back what I said, but also to ask me questions about it. Because again, if I was putting a roof on my house and I'm like, okay, so I want this, 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 and this, and they don't ask anything and they just put that up, we're relying on me to have been the smartest person in the room. And when it comes to roofing my house, I promise you, I am not. I'm just not. That's not my zone of genius. That's not what I'm planning for. That's not what I'm looking for. So in which case, I want to make sure that's why they come to an expert, is that it's going to be somebody that just, is it all right if I ask you a few questions? Because it's my goal to make sure that you are getting the best vacation for you. Anytime somebody starts off with, yeah, I'm going to go here. Fabulous. Can I just ask what it is? Like, what captured your attention? Because that's like a really cool destination, but I'm not so sure about the hotel. So I'm just really curious what that is. Well, Aunt Sally said it was amazing. That's great. Aunt Sally might not be a 31-year-old single or whatever the situation is. So let's just take what Aunt Sally said. And now, if it's all right with you, I'd love to go through a few questions with you, or just have a bit of and actually I wouldn't even say questions, have a bit of a conversation so that we can make sure that we're getting everything that you're looking for. And if Aunt Sally's is the right choice, then absolutely Aunt Sally rocks. But every once in a while, there might be something different out there that Aunt Sally didn't know existed. And so that's where I come in. I'm going to make sure you get the best possible vacation. So we have to qualify them. But what does that actually mean? So I want you to think about it this way. When you are working with your client, this is just how my brain works. Maybe it's how your brain works too. But when I have a new client come in, or even if I'm working with an existing client who's coming in to book a trip over, this is always how I looked at it. I would consider them to basically be like a box of puzzle pieces. And so I would look at that box of puzzle pieces and they would be just dumped on the table. And every question that I asked, every answer they gave, and every follow-up question was a way that it almost like it highlighted a piece of the puzzle so that we knew where it went. So all of the questions you ask become that first piece. The way they answer helps you to find that piece. And then the follow-up questions that are going to create the context, well, that's where suddenly multiple pieces get highlighted. And you're like, oh, okay, so if I got this, then I've got that, and I've got that. We want to look at it like every question, every answer, every bit of context for what they're looking for is going to help you to fit one more piece into the puzzle. That's also why asking just one or two questions isn't going to help you to solve a 1,000-piece puzzle. It's only going to let you know to flip them all over so that you can make sure you're at least working off of the same puzzle. Because the problem is sometimes when your clients come into you, when your clients reach out to you, they have this giant bag of puzzle pieces. The problem is that they don't recognize that they actually have puzzle pieces from 3 or 4 different puzzles, and they're all mixed up together. That's what you want to do. When you get curious, every time you're curious, it means you get to flip over another piece to make sure it's faced up right so that you can start to see which puzzle it belongs to. If you're missing pieces, what do you need to know? I don't know about you, but there is nothing more frustrating than getting down to those last little bit. And you're like, wait, I have 6 holes and 5 pieces. Somebody's taken something, which means we're definitely going to go see where the cat is because she's probably got something underneath the table and she's playing with it, or she's eating it, one or the other. But the thing is, though, is that you have to get curious. The curiosity is what's going to help you to make sure you have all the right pieces. It's going to be what helps you to pull those pieces together. Because when your clients come and they're overwhelmed, they might think they have all the pieces. They don't realize somebody else is taken off with them. But also, too, they're looking at it and they're like, I don't even know where to start. See, if you don't have a plan for how you're going to build out that trip, it's like looking at a giant stack of those puzzle pieces and going, oh, it's too overwhelming. I don't know how to do this. The travel advisor is giving you the picture of what that puzzle is supposed to look like. And then as you work together, you get to put all those pieces together. So yes, is there specific questions you need to ask? Absolutely. But am I going to tell you what they are? Not so much, because they're going to vary from one to the next to the next. Ultimately, what you need to do is know about the who. Who are they? What do we need to know about the people that are traveling? Are there any dietary issues? Dietary is becoming a big deal. As I'm getting older, my dietary needs, I apparently have started to develop all sorts of sensitivities to foods that I grew up on. I don't know what happened all of a sudden, but now we're no longer friends. But you might have clients that have mobility issues. I'm going to tell you, do not go straight to mobility issues, especially if you were dealing with a client that's a touch bit older. Instead, I always did it as a mobility and or dietary issues. because one, they're going to hear the dietary, they're going to absorb the mobility, but they're not going to just assume that you thought that they can't get around. Mobility and or dietary. So you've kind of given this like umbrella, if you will, of medical things. Not that you're asking for medical. You are just saying, is there any mobility or dietary issues that we need to be mindful of with the guests? Because the dietary is such a common thing. So to put the mobility in there, it just puts it into an umbrella. And then you want to do the what. What type of trip are you looking to do? What destination? What category? What this? What that? What are you looking for in your hotel? What are you looking for in your experience? What are you looking for in terms of group, individual? Like, what does that look like? When I worked with my brides and grooms, one of the first questions I would say, or after we got past who, because we need to make the list of who they think. And I always did the absolutely would move heaven and earth, the most likelies, and the holy smokes who. Because the move heaven and earth, that's typically, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa. But at the same time, too, we also want to talk about mobility and other such, because maybe grandma and grandpa, we've got to be really careful. And then the most likely meant that probably 50 to 75% of them were not coming. And then the holy smokes who, there is always somebody on that list that the couple invite. And when I would reach out to them and be like, so-and-so booked, they're like, holy smokes, who? Like, seriously? And so there is always going to be at least one or two off of that list. So we would look at that. Now, based on who's on those lists, now we need to know, what do we need to be mindful of? Do we need to make sure we have mobility? Do we need to make sure we have dietary? Do we need to, what needs to be looked after out of that? What do we need to know about the people? And then from there, what type of trip? When I worked with those brides and grooms, what do you want your ceremony to look like? What do you want this to look like? What do you want that to look like? What do you want this to feel like? Similar when you're working with your regular travelers. What type of an experience do you want to have? What do you want to do while you're there? What do you want to experience? What do you want to avoid? What do you want? What are all those whats? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to explore? Where do you want to end up? Where do you want to start? Where do you want to leave from? Where do you want to go to? All of those. The when. And when you don't know how to shrink down that time frame, because some of them will say, I don't know, just find me the best deal between this date and this date. And it might be a 9-month swing. So then you need to go back and start looking at, well, when are you not available? What do we have? Weddings, or maybe not funerals, weddings, graduations, milestones, any work projects you cannot be gone for, any specialist appointments, anything that's going on. I had a client once that did that. They wanted to go away. I think it was I don't remember if it was 10 days they wanted to go away for. If it was 10 days, then we had a 14-day window out of a 9-month window that they gave me. I think we had 14, either that or it was a 10. They wanted to go for a week and I only had a 10-day window. It was within that short of a margin. Once we started plotting everything in. Just because somebody says, I can go anytime, I'm going to call their bluff on that. There are definitely reasons they can't go. In that particular case, they couldn't go at month end because they had to be at the office for month end. Couldn't go here because they had this, then that. They had a specialist appointment here. They had this, they had that. You want to go into that. Do not do the proposal unless and until you have pinned down smallish windows of time. And then why? Every single thing you're going to do is the why. Again, just thinking of weddings. And it's that idea that, okay, so we have grandma and grandpa on there. If grandma and grandpa can't go, will you still want to go? If grandma and grandpa can't be a part of it, and maybe it's not grandma and grandpa, maybe it's this special aunt, maybe it's this special neighbor, maybe it's whoever. We need to know if that pivotal person is unable to travel for whatever reason, or is there a place that they can't travel to? We need to know that, because if that's the case, then that's going to shift everything. The more you understand the context of all of the things that you've gotten to learn about your clients, the more you understand the why of the decisions and the things that they say, the better you will understand your client and the better you're going to be able to connect with your client. So while, yes, there are a degree of qualification questions, ultimately, it's more about what it is you need to know about the client, about the trip, than it is specifically what you need to ask them. Ultimately, it comes down to who, what, where, when, why. Maybe not in that order. Maybe you're going to start with the where. Maybe you're going to start with the when. Maybe you're going to start with the what. We need to go through and get all of those. And that why is over and over and over again. We all don't like that 4-year-old, but at the same time, that 4-year-old was super curious and got to learn a lot. Don't ask it like a 4-year-old, but be as curious as a 4-year-old. Okay. That is all for this episode. If you are still struggling with this and want to have sales training, want to improve your sales skills, head on over to artofsellingtravel.com/curious. I'm going to link it up in the show notes. As of this recording, we do have the doors open, but for a limited time. And if it's not open, then we will send you on over to the wait list so that you can be one of the first notified when we open it up again. Curious to Booked is our signature sales program where you get to work with me inside of a group coaching program where we're going to walk you through how to do consultations, how to submit proposals, how to get referrals, and how to overcome objections, among so many other things. We're going to help you refine your sales process so that you become a sales dynamo. Till next time, happy selling.